Major Steelers update. This has serious implications as the Pittsburgh Steelers get a new price tag on their best defender. On today's episode of Steelers Digest, we'll be breaking down the latest Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers football team. My name is Peyton Kleppe. Before we get into the latest news, if you guys are not already currently subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below. Only 9% of our current viewers are actually currently subscribed to the channel. So if you click that subscribe button, we will get you the latest Pittsburgh Steelers news. Let's get right into it. So like I said, the Pittsburgh Steelers get a new update regarding their best defender, TJ Watt. You know, TJ Watt is a homegrown guy coming out of Wisconsin into Pittsburgh. This dude has been a beast since coming out of college, and he's been our most consistent and best player on our football team since he's been drafted. Since I believe it was 2017, he came into the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. We brought him in late in the first round, and this guy has been nothing but the best since coming into Pittsburgh. I was kind of hesitant, honestly, when we drafted TJ. Obviously, coming out of a big football name family. J.J. Watt, his older brother, was a multi-time defensive player of the year, multi-time all-pro defensive end in Houston. So, T.J. Watt was a guy that, he had a big name, but he also had a ton of pressure to perform. Since coming into the NFL, he's done way more than just perform. This guy's been a beast for us, won Defensive Player of the Year in 2021, and should have broken the single-season sack record if the NFL was not rigged in favor of some other guys, which I won't name. But, if you do check 2021 and you watch all the games, you would know TJ Watt did break the record, but one tackle on Tyler Huntley was marked as a tackle for loss and not a sack. But that is a whole different discussion that we will not get into today. But obviously, TJ Watt on his final year of his deal, and the Pittsburgh Steelers get a new update on his price tag. But looking into TJ's career, this guy, like I said, since coming into Pittsburgh, has been a stud. Looking at his stats, just look at those sacks. He's got 19 and a half in 2023. He's got 22 and a half in 2021. Obviously, earlier in his career, he had 15 in 2020. And, this guy was a defensive candidate or defensive player of the year candidate. Past, I'd say, probably 4 years. We go back, I think the first year TJ Watt was realistically a defensive player of the year candidate was probably 2020, coming off that 15-sack season. Obviously, he was going up against some difficult competition in Aaron Donald, but he was able to secure the bag, secure that defensive player of the year in 2021. 2022, he got hurt with the torn pec early in the season, but was able to come back and finish the season. Had a big interception year that year, which was kind of weird, but hey, he still contributed, having 2 picks that year. And obviously, 2023, dude came back even better, had a 19-sack season with an interception, but did unfortunately lose that Defensive Player of the Year race to Myles Garrett, which really was a hoax, really was a weird move by the NFL because TJ Watt had a better season on paper. So, but anyways, last year, TJ did kind of have a down year. He did only have 11 and a half sacks, which, is a little uncharacteristic for TJ. Like I said, this guy is a beast. This guy has been our best player since coming into the league. But I do think he will have a bounce back year next year. TJ was dealing with some injuries last year. He did miss a few games, so but he did hit that 30-year-old mark. So, those injuries start to add up when you turn 30. But TJ is on that last year of his deal. So the Pittsburgh Steelers obviously look at teams like the Oakland Raiders and the Cleveland Browns and see the moves they made this offseason. Max Crosby got a big deal. I believe it was for around $40 million guaranteed, or not guaranteed, $40 million each year. It's a ton of guaranteed money. Myles Garrett, the same. He tried to blackmail the Browns and said, trade me if you don't want to pay me. And they gave him that blank check, to say the least. Dude's getting paid more than $40 million a year. So TJ Watt, he's going to want to look to break what both those guys got, break that bank. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers realistically could probably offer him maybe a 3-year deal, but it's going to have to be within that $40 million mark, probably looking at closer to 42, maybe even a 45 if TJ Watt lucks out. But I don't know if he would get that much money. Probably more looking like a 41 million, 42, $43 million a year contract. So, but it's going to be tough. But the Pittsburgh Steelers have moved on from guys like George Pickens, Dante Jackson, Najee Harris, and obviously not signing one of those other quarterbacks to a max contract this offseason. It does open up some cap room for the Pittsburgh Steelers to make a move to sign TJ Watt. And I do think they will make this move. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a team that like to keep their guys in-house if they don't have any character issues and produce on the field and are good locker room guys. And TJ Watt has done more than that since coming into Pittsburgh. So I do think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to obviously extend this guy long-term, but Pittsburgh Steelers tend to make most of their signings, most of their big moves in free agency during the offseason, closer to training camp. So I could see them making a move like this as we head into OTAs. TJ Watt didn't even get his last big deal until during OTAs, where he walked into Khan's artist, said, "I want this deal done today." They're able to figure it out. And then TJ Watt headed into that weight room, started pumping out the bench press, doing some squats, and showing why he's a true Pittsburgh Steeler with black and gold running through his veins and a heart of gold. So, TJ Watt, he is a guy that I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to lock down before the season starts, and I do think he will remain in Pittsburgh for the rest of his career. I do think they will give him probably, like I said, a 3-4 year deal. He is a guy that is 30 years old, so this probably will be one of his last couple contracts, if not the last contract. So he probably will look to want to get paid pretty well compensated for his time in Pittsburgh and for the last couple years in Pittsburgh, because I do think this guy is a kind of guy where he wants to stay with the one team and stay in Pittsburgh for the rest of his career. Fans love TJ Watt. TJ Watt's my favorite football player at the time, at this time. So, obviously, we all love TJ. And I don't think we want to move on from him, even for the compensation that we may be able to get for him via trade. There were some rumors that the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to try to trade TJ Watt. Teams like the Eagles were looking, make that God squad. Thank God we wouldn't. And I don't think we would ever trade to another Pennsylvania team. I don't think we would ever trade him to Philly. But there were other teams that were linked to TJ, these crazy rumors, but I don't think these are going to happen. I do think Pittsburgh and TJ will come to an agreement as OTAs begin to start, as training camps begin. So, it also depends on when Aaron Rodgers will sign in Pittsburgh, because that is another guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers will have to look to lock down under contract. So it also depends on that. But I do think the Pittsburgh Steelers and TJ will come to an agreement on a deal. I do think this move will be made probably as summer begins, or at the end of summer, and maybe early as the season begins. So unfortunately, that is all I have for you guys tonight on Steelers Digest. If you guys are not already currently subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below. Here we go, Steelers. Peace out, boys.